So we're gonna, there we go. Welcome to Southern Oregon Progressive Podcast. I'm Betsy Cunningham, your co-host, and there's Kevin Bell somewhere in the room who's the co-host, and we're the founders of Southern Oregon Progressive Podcast. And so tonight we have two folks running for the Democratic Party nomination in different races for the upcoming midterm elections. And we're going to have each one of them speak. Dawn Rasmussen, who's running for Congressional District 2, which is currently held by Cliff Bentz. And if you don't know who he is, you're probably not in House District 2. Congressional District 2. And the other person is Bret Cecil, who is running for Oregon House District 1. And so first we'll have people introduce themselves. Kevin, you want to say something about yourself?
Sure, I'll go ahead. Hi, everybody. Good to see you again. SOPP as always. That's all I really have to say. I'm Kevin.
How about you, John?
Hey, yeah, I'm John Hunter. I'm with Community Rights Douglas County, and I'm on the board of the Oregon Community Rights Network. And it's always great to be here.
Yeah, and maybe our audience is low because of the Super Bowl, Gee, that's a hard competition.
Well, yeah,
we're not going to change the world until the football game is over. All right. So,
yes, but halftime is over, which means Bad Bunny got to perform. So
you did. I even watched part of it. So first up, we're going to have Dawn Rasmussen. She is running the hard battle against the evil of Congressional District 2 in Oregon. So Dawn, you want to introduce yourself? Tell some folks whatever you would like.
Okay, thanks for having me, Betsy, and everybody else. So I live up in the Dalles and live there with my husband and our two cats. And you know what? As I'm going through the state of Oregon, I'm noticing something. Actually, I'm noticing two things. First of all, I just got back from Ontario today after speaking at the Ontario Democrats, and I also had a campaign stop in Pendleton. I traveled about 680 miles, and I will tell you, I did not see a single Trump sign. For me, that's awesome news. And I think also in just talking to some folks, I actually met someone who's a personal friend of Cliff Bentz, but is voting against Cliff Bentz. So that ought to tell you something right there. So as far as my fight, and the way I'm looking at this is that we have a very red district. I understand that part. And I also realize that there's a rural urban divide. And so that's something I'm being very sensitive about because honestly, we're all Oregonians. I'm an Oregonian running to support Oregonians. I'm progressive in mindset, but I'm also very open to listening to folks because oftentimes people get caught up in the notion that should they run for office, then they're going to get their way 100% of the time. And actually, compromise is what governing really means. And so you can't get 100% of what you want, but if everybody can get a win, then you call it good. But I am finding that the second thing that I'm finding is Oregonians are getting squeezed. We are in a lot of struggles all across the state. The affordability issues, pretty much primary one on top of, well, ICE is the first one really. And then affordability issues are huge. I'm also really concerned about agriculture. We have a lot of folks that are, sixth, seventh generation Oregonians that are very proud people. They have their farms and they're struggling when we have big corporations that own a lot of different aspects of American life, but in particular agriculture, and they're getting huge tax breaks. Yet the mom and pop farm, who are the first people to pony up money for the local little league, or they actually the first ones that show up for a fire and they're disking the fields, they're the ones who are the salt of the earth, and they're not getting a fair shake, I don't believe, because these big corporations are getting all these big tax breaks. And then you add in the tariffs imposed by this, and I'm going to say illegal tariffs imposed by this administration, and then just the trouble with the markets. Wheat prices are pretty much as depressed as they were back in the 1970s, and if you adjust it for inflation. And then you have a president making statements about bringing in Argentinian cattle, that doesn't make Oregonian cattlewomen feel that great. So there's a lot of things stacked up against ag folks. I'm also very concerned about wildfires. That's a huge thing. And personally, I am involved with the Columbia Gorge Wildland Fire and Information page. It's a Facebook page in the Columbia River Gorge. And I've been the lead admin for that for several years now. And I'm the one who's posting up all about the fire. So I have firsthand knowledge of hearing people calling for more resources. And when there's nothing left to bring in, then it's kind of a very terrifying feeling, because you know that either lives or property or both are going to be lost, and crops as well. So so fire funding is really important in my mind as well, because so many of our communities, especially in CD2, are exceptionally prone to wildfires. And of course, I'm also pro health care for all. We got to make sure that we take care of our people. If a population is sick and underserved and they are in huge debt, that's not going to be a productive society. We have to look and solve the broken healthcare system, especially when those are also ruled by big corporations. Andrea Ocasio-Cortez, she just did she grilled a couple of healthcare executives on the House of Representatives floor, and she went through the whole cycle and what they call vertical integration of how they suck the money out of consumers every step of the way, from being the healthcare insurance provider to being the health provider to being the pharmacy to being the pharmaceutical manufacturer to being the senior center owner. It's really staggering how much corporations are actually controlling so much of our lives, and healthcare is one of them. And especially when we have 4 billionaires that have come out of the healthcare industry, insurance industry, that's wrong. So I'm very much opposed to having these big corporations rule our life. Yes, I'm a business owner personally. I appreciate the fact that I can make profit, but there's a certain point of how much is enough. And I can tell you, as a small business owner, I've never gotten a tax break like these big corporations. And when you have places like Amazon and all these other folks claiming that they're making record profits, yet they pay nothing in taxes because the whole system is canted towards them, that's just plain unfair. So we have to make sure the rich, rich, and the corporations pay their fair share. And I'm also concerned about having protecting our air and our water. And our soil. We have some major contamination issues up in northeast corner, up by Pendleton, Hermiston, in that area, because of the nitrates that are getting into the water supply, and people are told that they're not allowed to drink out of their own tap water, and that's terrifying as well. So it's a lot of different things here, and combined with a House of Representative Cliff Bentz right now, he is a Republican who's walking lockstep in with President Trump, and he is the co-author of what I believe is some of the worst part of the HR1, which I call the big bad barfalicious bill, and he's the one who's hurting directly his own constituents, because it's impacting his own constituents. So, and he's not listening to anybody. And I will tell you, as I go through this district and meet folks, and I've been talking to both Republicans and Democrats, and the Republicans are just as frustrated as Democrats. They don't see their representative showing up. They get form letters months later after they either call or write to the Representative Bentz, and it's not even on the topic that they were addressing. And it's just this complete checkout, doesn't care. And it's just kind of flaunting it in the faces of everybody. So that, to me, you have a sworn duty. That's how they wrote this role in the Constitution, that you should be out in the district. That's why they made these House of Representative roles every 2 years. And they want that churn. They want you out in the district. That's where you're getting that feedback from constituents. And just like you can't run away from a bad performance review if you're on the job. And if you do have a bad performance review, you'd be smart to listen to hear what the boss has to say, so you might learn something from that. But overall, Cliff Bentz is just skipping out on everything, and that's not acceptable. This is not representation. And I'm committing to doing the town halls. I'm committed to being out in the district, and I'm going to be responsive. And that's not just during this campaign, but after I get elected. And I do believe I'm the most electable person, because I am looking at the big picture for CD2, including wildfires and the healthcare and ICE and agriculture. Those are all things on top top of things, on top of the affordability issues as well. So I am charged up, I'm fired up. People are turning out in large numbers to the events that I'm putting together. And I know there's a lot of excitement building. And I do believe that CD2 is extremely vulnerable, even though a lot of people say that it's not. Again, no Trump signs. People are starting to quietly fold up tents, and I'm encouraged by the exciting results that are happening in Louisiana and then also in Texas, where the representatives there won by huge margins that were originally Trump had won by plus 17 or plus more than that. So I think our time is coming for CD2. It's never been held by a woman. There's only been 2 Democrats in the entire time that seat has been available. But I'm undeterred because I hear that people are saying they're so frustrated, and I think I'm hitting the right notes, and I'm taking more of an unconventional approach by really saying, okay, how can we try to work together while keeping hold to my values? And I'm not taking any corporate PAC, APAC, or dark money. And so what you see is what you get. I'm the real thing. I'm authentic, and I'm fired up, and I'm going to fight for everybody. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Oh, anyone have questions?
Yeah. So we had we've we had a presentation last fall. I don't know, with Chris Hall from a Water League, and he was talking about the situation in Morrow County.
Mm-hmm.
And 85% of the water use in Oregon is by basically industrial agriculture,
Mm-hmm.
and it goes toward the production of a lot of it for alfalfa, which gets very little of it stays in Oregon. It goes across country and it goes overseas. Anyway, and I know that's probably a big issue affecting where you're at, because if they drain these aquifers, which have been there for thousands and thousands of years, Eastern Oregon's screwed.
It is. And I live in the Dalles, and I live upstream from the Google data centers. And my well has gone down 15 feet in 15 years. And that's absolutely scary. And now there were 3, and now there's going to be 6. I am extremely worried about that. And, this is where I am absolutely in support of labor union jobs to build these types of facilities, but the data centers in particular, which has contributed to what's happening in Morrow County by bringing down the water table. It's just sucking the contaminant plume down into the water table. I would rather see these data centers be built in a way that they're more self-contained. So in the case of Google, they're evaporating all of the water. So as it gets heated up, as it passes through to cool down the data center, then it's going up in the air. And if there's a way to capture it, cool it, and then send it back through the system, then they're not going to be consuming. And this is the most recent record, 300 million gallons a year of water from our aquifer. And I'm concerned about that. Now, when we talk about a lot of agriculture uses, I can tell you I've talked to the folks in Harney County, and they're in really bad shape. And even though it's a basin there, all the water comes off the mountains in there. There's been a group that's actually been working together, like farmers and agricultural users and industrial users and civic users. And their concern is that the basin there, their aquifer has been dropping like a rock, and they're just trying to stop it, at least stabilize it. And one of the things it was interesting because I sat in on one of the meetings where they were discussing this, and they're talking about, and I'm not agriculturally inclined, but there's this the gun that's at the end of the big long pipes for agriculture. It shoots out water off the end. They were saying if you could just turn that off from all of the different agriculture. You could still do the long lines, but just turn off that gun, it would save a lot more water. It was just little things like that that can make a big difference. And then, again, when we think about markets for our commodities, whether it's wheat or cattle or alfalfa or whatever, we have to think about the livelihood. Where are those markets existing for our agricultural folks, and how can we get those to that market? But at the same time, we have to think about more sustainable methods to, it can't just be, if they want their generational farm to continue to be in a generational handoff, you got to think about the future. You can't just say, okay, I'm going to suck it dry, and then I guess my future generations won't be able to farm here because it's unarable land because there's no water. So it's in their own best interest, if they want to continue that generational farm, to think about sustainability. So there's a lot of questions to be asked. I don't have the answers because, quite frankly, a lot of folks that are more scientifically inclined are still working on this, but I'm very aware of the issue that water scarcity is a major concern in a lot of different corners of CD2. And I'll even go on a little bit further. I'm very worried, especially from a fire standpoint, of the very low snowpacks we have right now. I think Mountain Hood in particular is 26% of normal, and we're just not seeing the snowfall. I just came from Ontario earlier today, and the snow level's really high. I mean, usually you'd be going through the Blue Mountain Pass byway up there, up top of Cabbage Hill, and it'd be snowy, and it's like wet, and it was 43 degrees up there today. So, and raining. So we're not capturing the snow, the water in terms of snow content. It's just kind of running off, and it's going to be a bad year. And I'm really worried about that.
So can I
Brianna,
step in? Can I step in and
Yeah,
ask
go
a
ahead.
question, Betsy? That'd be
Sure.
all right. And
Yeah,
it's for
sure.
Dawn. So you're talking about data centers, Dawn, and I have a couple other things I wanted to ask you about, but since that's the last topic we were on, I know there is discussion about making them self-contained. Can we call it that? I don't know how they can self-contain their water. Are they going to bring it in on a truck? But as far as their power goes,
Yeah.
one of the things that's really spooking me is hearing discussion of having these micro nuclear power generating plants at the data centers.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks it's a great idea. And in one sense, I think it would be a good idea, but there's still waste, nuclear waste. What do we do with that? And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that idea.
There's so many layers to that. I guess the first thing is, what kinds of hazards are out there that could impact the reactors? I mean, I'm pretty much guessing the inland, there's not going to be any tsunamis that are going to inundate the reactors, but we do have a lot of wildfires out in Eastern Oregon. And so there's questions about, well, how can we safeguard those reactors from fire? And if it cuts the generator, same thing that happened in Fukushima, that the generators went out and they couldn't cool it down and remove the control rods. So what if there's a fire and the electricity goes out? And, so there's a lot of concerns about, safeguarding the operational capacity of those and the safety measures in extreme situations. And then to your point, I think it's Yucca Flats Mountain, which is where they're storing most of the nuclear waste in the United States. I don't know how full it is, but if we have a whole bunch of micro reactors, I've actually, believe it or not, probably been the only person running for Congress that's been inside of a nuclear reactor right now. I was a long time ago, was involved with Channel 2. I worked there, and I was helping the camera crew as a grip, and we did work on
would explain your glow while you're here.
Yeah, that's right. No, I actually got to go inside. We were doing a documentary on the power alternatives of the Northwest back in the 90s, believe it or not. So I kind of go back on that. And I went inside Trojan Nuclear Plant, and then I also went inside the breeder reactor at Reed College. And the cameraman was tipping over. We had the gate open. You could see the glow of the rods. And of course, we had the suits on and everything. And he's tipping the camera to get a shot down in the water. And I see this bead of sweat running down his face. And the camera lens cap was dangling off the lens. And it almost fell in the water. He was just like slowly grabbing the lens cap. But anyway, there's a whole nother set. When you take away one problem and you replace it with something else, you can cause more issues. So, the waste, the safety issue, the security of these things too. Who's going to be guarding these things? If we have multiple reactors, I know, for example, the data centers, I know Google has pretty strong security. I'm going to assume that all the rest of them have strong security. But what if there's a very bad actor that decides to do something? That could be a real terrorism target, honestly, because I'm sure whatever had happened there would impact a huge area. So I'm not convinced yet until I can hear a really clean argument about how these reactors will help. I'm not quite convinced about them yet because I am concerned about those things.
Well, I think we can certainly stick with our renewable energies that we have.
Yeah,
Solar specifically
yeah,
comes to mind, and I know there are plenty of wind generating turbines
and
out
hydro,
out of the Columbia Gorge.
and we have
And so
hydro
those are
too.
things
So
I think we could look at rather than as Donald John Trump is doing now, want to just ignore everything that's
yeah.
renewable, especially electric, and
Well,
going
he
back to
basically cut
oil.
the funding for a lot of green projects that would have helped us.
Right.
And I went to actually a power it was a power project informational meeting in South Sherman County about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. And I actually met with some concerned citizens beforehand that were pro for the project, but then I also listened to people in the audience that were opposed. And it's interesting. I had no idea that some of the, if you drive out there, you see all these red lights blinking at night, and you're like, holy cow, there's a lot of wind towers here. And of course, all the solar. Well, I thought they all were going to the grid, and in fact, they are not. A lot of them are dedicated specifically for data centers. One of them goes all the way up to the Microsoft, which I had no idea. So it's like they're using that wide open land, but some of these power companies are helping small communities. So interesting thought, and I'm just going to add one more thing here. Sherman County is the only county in the United States that actually gets a rebate for every single citizen, much like what in Alaska, all citizens there get a rebate from the oil production that the state has. So the county of Sherman County is getting rebates. So if you're a farmer and you decide to install a power project on your farm, which is, if you're a farmer, there's going to be good years and bad years for crops, but the power is a steady income. So you could have the steady income, plus you would get the rebate check, plus the power companies are paying huge amounts of money into the local tax base. And so they are actually, as in Sherman County, they were failing as a county. They were literally running out of money. And the funds that have come in actually have built fire halls and replaced, emergency equipment. And so they're kind of systematically going through the county and replacing the infrastructure, which it wouldn't have been replaced otherwise. So there's some, and plus it's renewable. So there's a lot of good things. And then there's some people that still have concerns. So it's kind of like you got to find the common good here, and I believe these projects were actually put forth by Wyden and Merkley. So they were trying to really help build jobs. And of course, that means a lot of great paying, union jobs too, building those. So yeah, there's a lot, it's a complex story.
I have one other little one, but I don't want to step ahead of Kevin or John or Betsy, anybody else getting in a question. So I'll wait a moment.
Okay.
Anybody else? All right, go ahead, Brett.
So I've been reminded and relearning being in the legislature, whether it be at the state or the federal level, most of the work that we do in those bodies is done in committees. So committee work is
Yep.
really, that's how we bring stuff together. Those floor votes typically don't mean a whole lot. They can be really performative unless we're bringing legislation forward, which has been developed in the committees. What committees would you see yourself sitting on, or committee? And I know those are done by assignment, so we don't necessarily get to pick, but where do you think
Correct.
you would fit in at that?
Yeah, I was looking at, I know Representative Bentz is on, it's like the natural resources, and that's, that and ag, so those two things are going to be most representative of the district. So, and here's the trick, you can put in your request and then they'll put it up for a vote and then you get an assignment. That's kind of how it works. And Benz, despite being on these committees, he has not done anything for any appropriations or earmarks, which is tragic for our district because there's so many communities absolutely abjectly struggling. And, he's not doing his job, and we need that. I mean, for example, there was a mill that was going in near John Day in what's the Prairie City, and it just didn't happen. And people were excited because it was going to be good paying, union jobs in the mill and all that kind of stuff. And they didn't decide not to do it. And so now the closest mill from John Day is down in Gilcrest, which is down by kind of Crater Lake.
Yeah.
So when you think about how much effort and time and money and labor that goes into harvesting trees and, clean them up and stacking them and then put them on trucks and shipping them, do you know what the average profit per log load is now? It's $50.
That's it.
$50.
But
So John Day it's a dying city because there's just nothing. I was meeting with a bunch of folks there, and I went into Subway to grab dinner, and there's this young kid behind the counter, and I asked him, "So what do you do for fun here? What's your story?" And he says, "Well, I moved to Prairie City to go to the log mill, and then they closed it. So now I'm working at Subway." And he says, "Like, this is just an awful place to be." And it's just like, we can't have that because we're gonna have ghost towns, and we're already heading in that direction really quickly. They're bleeding young people. We have to create a reason for them to be there and jumpstart these economies, but we have to be smart about it. That balances what the locals want and the nature of those towns with the economic necessity. That's a good question. Thank you.
The Oregon Coast Range Association, Chuck Wooler specifically, has done a lot of work on the economic downfalls of areas that have been timber dependent.
Yep.
And one of the things, I don't know if you're familiar with the United Way has a program or launched a program. It's now kind of a separate entity. It's ALEC. It's people who, actually have at least a full-time worker in the household and yet are on the margin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a growing, and I've done a lot of into that here. And Douglas County, for example, is one of the ones on the highest risk in this ALEC rating. Actually, sometime in the future, we hope to have somebody from that project come here and talk about it. But the real concern is exactly what you say, that you can show, these places where timber has been dependent, but it's part of the extraction industry.
Mm-hmm.
And is becoming more corporate. I mean, we still do have, Roseburg Forest Products here that's local, but a
They
lot
just
of
laid
what
off. They're
is,
laying off more people. I just saw,
yes,
wasn't it? Yeah,
Riddle,
I saw
Riddle, yeah,
175 people, I think.
yeah. They're closing down, aren't they? The
Yeah,
plywood mill
yeah.
in Riddle.
They're going to
And so,
Coquille. They're going to
yeah.
Coquille. Yeah.
And the industry, and even the whole thing about AI, I was thinking of what you were talking about. I was a trained paralegal for uh years, and I was recently doing an open case, is what it's called, AI for lawyers, oriented towards lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was doing it for the work that I wanted, it was great, and I said, holy shit, I want to use this. But I also said, paralegal, this is going to take away law clerks jobs, paralegal jobs, because that's what I used to do when I worked actually for lawyers. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you see this when you're talking about jobs, that consequence of AI and building out the AI. I'm also going to say on the energy side that part of the problem that I am concerned when I hear any politician talk about energy, I don't hear the reduction of use of energy for all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. That it's focused on let's making more and more, we're feeding mega mansions in Douglas County. Okay.
Yeah.
McMansions, not mega mansions, McMansions, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And retirees come here, have a lot of money in their pocket, and they, build these
Yeah.
huge things, and there's two of them. Right?
Mm-hmm.
They're living in them. So no one's causing, I hear nothing about that
Conservation.
responsibility.
Yeah.
Right. And that responsibility. And then you're talking about, what should government be mandating? If it's going to cause the end of human existence on the planet, if government doesn't do anything, then I'm not sure there's a point in government.
Yeah. And quite honestly, the government that we had before is no more. We're in a different world now. Everything that is what we call constitutes government at this point is now obviously completely canted towards the current regime. And they don't care about that kind of stuff, of course. But, even if we don't have, let's just say this current administration goes away and, it's blue everywhere, then what's our eco footprint? And, even back, remember when I think was it Obama or Gore that said if you make sure your tires are inflated, that it'll save on gas mileage? I think it was Obama. And just turning off those power strips that are like phantom power suckers in your home. I mean, I go around and my husband and I just realized that we don't really turn on many lights. Some people, and so some of those McMansions, they have every light ablazing, right? And it's just I think it has a lot to do with just reaching out and educating people. First of all, that whatever you do, and that goes for AI. And I think we need to regulate AI because right now it's absolutely unfettered. And I think a lot of people don't know quite what to do with AI, but considering everything, every time we put an inquiry in there, that it's eating up more power. And Oregon's grid is already strained. I don't know if you heard, but I heard on OPB that they're expecting possible brownouts this summer because we just don't have enough power. And that's why I was so surprised to hear that all these windmills and power projects, solar power projects, are not necessarily tied to the grid. That was kind of astounding to me because I kind of thought that all went in there. But silly me, it's like you learn things as you go along. But conservation is part of the plan, and educating people as to the how and the why. And there's going to have to be like educational campaigns about that, but then also figuring out how can we try to contain the usage of it while we're still looking at other possibilities. And it's many facets. It's like an onion, you start peeling, it has so many different layers to it. And everything you do has an impact on something else. And that kind of goes with the whole lithium mine that they're wanting to dig out in Southeast Oregon, out near right on the Nevada border, Fort McDermott. There's the McDermott caldera that they found the world's largest lithium deposit there. And I was doing some research, and I'm all in support of jobs. However, that is protected area for the sage grouse. There are culturally significant areas for the native people there. And they're saying peak lithium is only going to last another decade. And yet this mine is supposed to give jobs for 65 years. Well, they're already talking about sodium ion batteries, which are and solid state batteries, which will be more efficient than lithium. And so are we going to go in and extract, as you said, from that area, and it just kind of bottoms out after 10 years, but the ecological damage just continues I'm not sure how they're going to do it. And another thing that concerns me is that they are foreign owned companies. High Tech Industries is based in Australia. So we have someone who's going to be extracting that, whatever they get out of the land there, and it's going to be Australian owned. And it's just like, oh my gosh.
How is that not a national security concern?
Yeah, right.
Which
that
is what
too.
Mr. Trump's pressing right now on everything, that if you can't
Yeah.
call it an emergency, it's a national security issue. So
Yeah.
it literally is.
Yeah. So we can go, so we can look at having electric cars, but then they require batteries, and then they also require electricity. So it's like, yes, you can trade one, but then you're creating a whole nother set of problems. And it's like trying to find a balance. I'm not saying an absolute of one or the other. I think we're going to have to navigate our way through this wilderness of renewables and find ways that we can use technology and innovate so that we can find more gentler ways to generate the energy that we need while we're also preaching conservation and mindfulness. And that's a big bite to chew. I think we all know that. That's a good question.
Anybody else?
Oh, I just have a quick question for you. It's kind of personal. You live in the Dalles.
Yes.
Do you know Dave Braun?
No, I do not.
Okay, he's an arborist over there.
Okay.
Okay. I just wondered if you knew him.
Oh, no. It is a small town.
Okay. Well, the thing about nuclear power is too, and the storage, I mean, the half-life of like plutonium is a lot longer period of time than any other country on this earth has even existed.
Right.
So which is just kind of mind-boggling that they even want to consider something like, this is going to last longer than anything. So,
yep. Yep, it just won't go away. And look at the uninhabitable land near Fukushima, Japan, that got contaminated, and then of course Chernobyl, that whole exclusion zone that they have there. It's not going to go away in any of our lifetimes, and none of our children or grandchildren's lifetimes.
No.
It's still going to be highly radioactive. So it's fun to think about it and hypothesize, but you also have to plan for the worst. And are you willing to risk the future communities? I mean, we already have the Hanford fallout, about that there's higher cancer rates in the from all of the production that went on the Hanford nuclear plant, that there's actually plumes that came from their production, and there's higher cancer rates in that plume, just it's dependent on the wind blowing. So it doesn't, yeah. I don't want to get too depressed.
We don't have to worry about nuclear power. What's most depressing is the other stuff happening right now.
Yeah, right. I know. It's like one of many things. Everything's on fire.
We may not exist long enough to worry about the long-term consequences of nuclear storage.
Right. But we want to pave a way. We want to make sure the future's there for future generations. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's my frustration always with government, is that they don't really have a big picture, long-term, look at anything. And particularly when it's driven by money and who's going to make money in the immediate future. So anybody else have any questions, comments? Max, Kevin? All right. Yeah, Kev, Max.
I got crickets here.
Mine would have been simple anyway. I was really interested in what Bret had to say, and I really liked what you had to say about Jefferson County and the rebates. I think a lot of people are really short-sighted in today's political atmosphere, and they don't really look at what their children are going to eat. But I do think that rebate does have a really interesting perspective. My only question is, I haven't really been paying attention to Cliff Bentz's district. I've only heard some really of the shitty things that he's done, like voting against veterans and stuff like that. I'm sure you've been following along. What's some of the shitty things that Cliff has been doing?
Oh boy.
I'm sure that there's a long list, but this gives you a chance.
Where to start? Oh gosh. Well, he voted against the veterans and supporting them, especially the ones that were exposed by all the chemicals in the burn pit. So he told the veterans he was supporting them, and he went ahead and voted against the measure that would have actually supported them. That's pretty not good. And then he helped write the HR1 healthcare part. And so that's hurting anybody who's on Medicaid. And he has been not speaking up about ICE. He has not been speaking up about a lot of different issues, affordability issues. He was just at a national event, and he was playing the guitar. And he posted about that on his Facebook page. And I was thinking, okay, is this really a good image to have, Representative Bentz? It's kind of like, you're not fiddling, but you're playing the guitar while Rome is literally burning. And he's also tone deaf to what his constituents are saying that they need. So I've had a lot of conversations with people that know him personally, and they have told me that he was somewhat of a pretty approachable guy when he was in the Oregon legislature. But as soon as he got to DC, he became very cold, very distant, and very arrogant. And he's telling people that, you don't matter. And these are people that have flown to DC on lobbying, advocacy missions and lobbying to go talk to him. And he's basically doesn't have time for them. And these are people that are community leaders in District 2. So it's not just voters, but it's everybody. He's just basically saying, you're not someone I want to talk to. And you just can't do that. He is selectively going around and talking to people when he does come in a district, but he's not doing town halls. And when he does talk to people, it's all friendly people. And then he posts about it. I won't say what it was, but he was at an event recently, and he tagged a bunch of people, and one of the people did not appreciate being tagged. He didn't ask them, and it was more like just a conversation, and he made it sound like it was a big deal, and that person was not happy. So it's kind of like that disregard for people and being told you're not important. And there was one quote from, I think, the East Oregonian in July of 2024. I don't have the information from me, so I don't have it right. I can't specifically quote it, but he said basically it's all about money and power, and you don't matter. And that was kind of the gist of the quote. So that says it all. And quite frankly, other people said he's pretty much checked out, and he's just waiting to get his federal pension, and then he'll be good. And that's not how you can't cruise in this kind of role. You have to be an active member of Congress, and talking to the voters and asking what they need, and then pursuing projects that benefit the voters, not hurt them.
I have one quick thing I want to toss in, if I may.
Sure.
Do you have any Democrat or a Democrat opposing you in the primary? So sticking to the election part of it, do you have an opponent?
Yeah, okay. So Cliff Bentz has two people challenging on the Republican side. So he has a challenge primary, and there are 5 of us now in the Democrat race. There are 4 women. We've been at this for quite a while, and we forged a partnership to say we're the Fab Four, and we are not going negative on each other. We're also trying to appear as many forums as possible so everybody can see us all at once. It's much more democratic. And we also agreed whoever wins, we're going to drop out and endorse that winner. So we decided we had, and this was kind of my idea, it's like, let's be the leaders we want to see now and demonstrate civility, because everybody's tired of that. Now, we do have a new person that's entered the race. It's a gentleman, and he's down in Ashland, and he has expressed the same interest. So he's just kind of getting his camp. He literally joined last week or a week ago. And so he's just getting his legs underneath him and starting to run, get his campaign going. But he and I are actually going to talk this coming Thursday. So we'll discuss that as well. But he did say that he did want to be part of that pact, that we're just going to be the leaders we want to see. And what a breath of fresh air. People really enjoy that. And I'm glad too, because it's all about party unity, because at the end of the day, we need as many people behind the winner to go out and beat Bentz. So that's where we're going with it. So good question.
Thanks for that answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things I'm running into. Not only am I a party chair in Kirk County, but I'm also the one that's looked to as like, who's going to run for election in whatever seat is open. And so I've run into that again this year, that no one's running against Court Boice, and I will not sit back and let him take that.
Just cruise in there,
without having to do anything.
Right.
So if nothing else, I want him to spend some money, because he hates spending money on his campaign.
Yeah. And that's something else I want to get money out of politics.
Boy, does that need to happen. And we're glad Bret actually does that. I'm the candidate chair for the candidate in Douglas County Democrats, and getting people to run is in this red area is really, really a struggle.
It
so
is.
Betsy,
problem.
May I say thank you to Southern Oregon Progressive Podcasts, you and Kevin especially, for putting this together and having us here this evening, because there aren't a lot of opportunities come up where we can speak to people. So I really appreciate it. And thank you for helping me dig around. HD2 still needs a person. HD4, I believe, needs a candidate. Still looking to make those things happen, because it makes a difference when there's an opponent in the race. I would love to have a Democratic opponent for a change, not just have me talking about what I think. I'd like to hear what somebody else thinks for a change, but it seems to be me by myself. I don't mind. I love it.
There's an actual weird quirk in the Secretary of State's interpretation of the law. Although you have to be a registered Democrat to be on the ballot to get the nominee, you have to be the nomination for the state house district or state office. But if you are a write-in, you can be a Republican, and if you win the write-in vote. And that happened a few years ago when we had no win in HD2. We had no Democrat won. So the Republican was able to say she was nominated by both the Republican and the Democratic Party. And I said, no.
That almost happened in our Senate district in 24.
Yeah.
David Brock Smith got the nomination from the Democrats for that, but he turned it down, thankfully.
Well, the one she didn't. It appeared on the ballot, and that's, I piqued my interest, and I had a long discussion with the Secretary of State. So I say even run if you just put your name there. I don't care if you run, just put your name there. But we might have HD2 candidate. It'll be interesting. Hopefully, we will get someone, and we don't have to run in that. So we have to solve that by May for that not to happen. But Max, I see that you were on once. You have a question you want to put in here for Dawn before she leaves and can go take a nap or sleep. I guess it's night time. You're going to go sleep after your long drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to mention. I just put in my 2 cents here. About basically the kind of daunting task it seems to be to try to run for office. That from my position anyway, I just kind of don't feel like I'm really the type of person that would be running. And so that's what I'm saying is like I don't really care. But at the same time, I come to think like, well, what is the type of person that wouldn't run? It's just this whole the public, and that's what I'm seeing mostly with what I'm having a hard time trying to figure out how a person would even like start to deal with this stuff is just like the public.
Are you running? Are you running, Zach?
Yeah, Max. Yeah.
Oh, Max. Sorry.
I've decided I'm deciding to run for mayor of Roseburg.
Oh,
so
awesome.
I just made a new email. It's maxforroseburg@gmail.com. And yeah, it just mentally kind of, it's like hard to even grasp the whole concept of like trying to, do stuff in office and stuff. I just think of more of like a DIY, grassroots kind of like, unofficial or
nonpartisan. I think you're looking for.
Well, nonpartisan, but also just direct action. I guess private, privately funded or whatever, because usually it's another whole thing to try to
raise money
for what you need to do right now.
Yeah,
we need to wait for this. So I don't know. I mean,
can I give you some words of advice?
Oh,
would that help?
Yeah, as much as possible.
Okay, and Bret too. So I have always said that the people that should be running for office aren't, because they're so disgusted by the whole thing. And that's been, my mom was famous for calling me out on cop-outs.
Mm-hmm.
And, that is a cop-out, because that's also getting yourself off the hook. Mm-hmm. And, it's people who really care that aren't motivated by power, aren't motivated by money, aren't motivated by ego, that are actually servant leaders. And I don't know if you have a background, Max, in like community organizing and that kind of thing, but it's that servant leadership kind of thing involved in the community that you care. And where we've lost our way is that so many people have gotten tied up into tribal loyalties instead of working for the common good. And so if that's what you believe in, the common good, then you should be stepping up. You, of all people, should be stepping up, because we absolutely need people who can set aside the personal agendas and realize it is about serving the people. I ran for, the first time I ever ran for office was for the Wasco County School District here in the Dalles. And I did it in 2017 when Trump said he was going to grab them by the meow, and I was like, I'll be darned if this guy's going to dominate politics and demean women so much. So I ran. And then this round came around, and I was just like, ever since day one last year, we all know every day it's, there was a whole flood of executive orders, and it's just one bad, awful thing every day, a new horror. And I was just doom scrolling, and I was just feeling I can't just take this out on my own psyche. because you get depressed and you get mad and you get all these things. And I thought, somebody's got to save us. And I realized no one's going to save us. This is our time. And it might be, we look back at the people who fought in World War II and they fought against fascism. That was a war, but that was on foreign soil. This is our soil. And our war is going to be waged by us standing up. This is our time to stand up. And I'm 58, so I'm going to guess I'm way older than you are, Max. But, we all have a stake in this. And when I talk to people, it's like everybody, I just happen to be a candidate. Maybe somebody else who's a volunteer, somebody else is a donor, somebody else is phone calling, somebody else is doing postcards. It's all of us. And everybody has a role to play. No one's any more important than anybody else because we all collectively will do this together. So just if you can grant yourself the grace to say, I'm going to step up because this is what we need. And I know what we need. I'm going to serve that need. Then you're fine and you're justified. And it's the people. And I know there's a lot of problems in Southern Oregon between Jackson and Josephine. And I think Douglas County with some of the county commissioners and everything that I've been hearing, it's a nightmare. And we need to set the record straight. So we have to be the change that we want to see. So give yourself some grace and realize, it's not an ego thing. It's just, you're doing the right thing because there's a void there. And it's amazing. I just got a t-shirt today. It says, courage is contagious.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Write that down. Courage is contagious.
We need, yeah, exactly. So
yeah.
The more we get our foot in the doors and just kind of like deformalize the conversation first and then actually progress. I'm really excited because it's a whole, like, I tend to just want to talk to people and listen to people anyway, and it's good. Just make that my freaking job,
Great way to do it.
Yeah.
Can I toss in a little advice for you, Max?
Yeah.
On that point. So run for office. And if you don't win, run again. I've known so many people who have run for office and they don't win and they disappear into the woodwork. I never hear from them again. So take it from someone who's doing, this will be my third time running for the seat. But I know the district really well now. People know me in the district, and I bumped my numbers from the first time in my second run. And in this third run, I'm feeling like I probably have a pretty good chance, especially given what Republicans are doing right now. I think I can make a dent. But having some practice and being out and seen around the community really makes a difference when you're running for an office. And I'll also toss in, as a county party chair, PCPs are a really great way to learn how to put your name on a ballot. And you can campaign because you have a precinct that you're going to represent. And I think you should call the people in your precinct and say, hey, I'm running for PCP. What can I do for you? Would you consider voting for me? Because you do have to get, I think, at least 3 votes to actually be elected. You can't just vote for yourself. So it's something to think about.
PCC?
That's in the Democratic.
Precinct committee.
Democratic Party. Sorry.
It's actually not a party thing. It's actually, that is part of our state setup, our political setup. Republicans have PCPs also.
So
precinct committee person or
precinct committee.
And they're all, but they're only major.
Every county is broken up into precincts based on your population. It's so many people in each one of the precincts. So some of the precincts get really big to get enough people in them. My county has 27 precincts. And you can, depending on how many people live in them, you can have so many seats in each precinct. But people can run. It doesn't cost anything to get on the ballot. You can even file online now. This year, when I did mine, it's like I just put in my name and my phone number and my email address and filed online. It was done in a second. So I will be on the ballot. And the first time that I did that was how I kind of got into being an elected, because I contacted people in my precinct to let them know that I was looking to be their precinct committee person, and they checked me on their ballot. So it's good practice.
There's I got a story.
I want to insert some information here so people aren't, don't misunderstand it. PCPs are only in the 2 major parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. So if you're not registered in one of those parties, and you actually have to be registered Democrat for 6 months, I believe it is, prior to being a PCP, and the Republicans as well. That's governed by state law. So, but we have precincts regardless, because that's how voting was particularly divided up because we had in-person polls. right? So at some point they actually could have
Remember
done
those
away with
days.
it. Anyway, so whatever else you want, Dawn, what would you like to say? And then,
Well, I was just going to say there's, I talked to a young person down in Grants Pass that's still in high school, and they are going to be mayor in 2028.
Oh, cool. Wait, from
So
where is this?
Grants Pass.
Oh, okay. So they're running for mayor. They're running for mayor in 2028.
Yeah, I mean, they're not running yet. They have to graduate and turn 18 and everything, but that's
Yeah.
their dream. That's what they want to do. And it's like, it's, you gotta, to Brett's point, there's some political capital that you build every time you run, and
Yeah.
some name recognition. You can build, it makes your next run a little bit better, easier, I guess, because you already got some cachet to your name.
And yeah, just coming back, over time and continuing to kind of be an authentic voice that's at least trying to expand the kind of constituent input. And that's kind of my main of course that's a good thing to run on is bringing the community's voice together and so yeah, that's another thing is like it's really clear, like the public jury or whatever, the court of public opinion and stuff. You hear stuff like, I've been talking to people a lot about like Bernie Woodard's camps and stuff. And I mean, you don't hear a lot of great stuff from people that are experiencing and interact with these. So it's like, the more you hear, I don't know. I mean, the word of mouth, grassroots, I can just really see that being so important for the future, kind of like the way we're going to pull out of this crazy, like corporate owned everything, in politics. It just seems really, I mean, it's really scary. And it makes that movement toward, collective voice, being represented at least a lot strong. I mean, it's becoming a lot more of an exciting idea as that goes. So I don't know. That's what I'm, speaking to people like not a politician, politician. That's just
like their neighbor.
Or like,
yeah.
Max is
I
actually
just
very good at that. Max is very good at that. And I'm gonna and what I have watched Dawn do so far, for one, she's not even even be the representative for Roseburg, right? That's
south of Roseburg,
CD4. Right.
CD4.
So but you've been here already once in person, and then you plan on being back, I think, at the end of the month. Also, I saw that you're going to be in Myrtle Creek, right?
Yep.
So that's is that in the district?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so yeah, I wasn't, because the House district is a little bit different.
It's just south of Roseburg, so it's like the south end of Douglas County. Yeah.
And so you're
my
going to be
district
there.
Overlaps you a little teeny bit, Don. in Round Prairie, there's a little bit.
Okay.
My district's all CD4, except I discovered in my second run, there's this little teeny bit in Round Prairie that belongs to CD2.
Okay.
It kept not showing up.
We'll meet in the middle.
Yeah, there we are.
And I think House District 4 is probably some of the larger area that is there, because Richard's run, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I've watched Bret Cecil, and Bret has it down. It's that one-to-one conversation, which you like best anyway, Max. So it's not necessarily the need to speak in groups of people or even online. It's that the more people, particularly for a mayor's race, that you can meet door to door, really is a way to win an election here for mayor or city council.
Yeah.
A little bit harder for Dawn to do that.
You know what? I don't mind it. I love it. The best part, I say I'm putting on a lot of miles, but I'm getting a lot more smiles.
There you go. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I might pinch that one from you.
Hey, no, it's okay.
I want to pick up on something that Max said and Don said earlier on, talking about politics and how people don't want to get involved because it's icky and I don't want to be in there. I've had that discussion with a lot of people. It's like, I don't want to be involved in it because it's just, so you can't change it sitting on the outside, poking fun at it or poking your finger at it. The only way to change, especially a party, if we want to change the Democratic Party, we have to run for office, get some legitimacy, and change the things inside the party that we think need to be repaired. It's up to us as a party to fix ourselves on the inside. People on the outside have no say in what we do. Republicans can complain about us all day long. They have no say in what we do. But if Donald Trump took over the Republican Party, he's rebranded and whatever. The whole entire party is his now. So why can't Democrats get together? Well, I can answer that question. Why can't we get together and rebuild ourselves from the inside out?
Well, can I just add on that, Brett?
We
Can I
all
just
have an
add on
opinion.
that?
Yeah, please do it.
Well, I was going to say part of it is that we can't allow ourselves to be changed because that quite often happens. And so I keep saying, I turned out it was Harry S. Truman that said the buck stops here. And I'm saying, I'm going to put a thing on my desk that says the people stop here. It's going to be what will remind me every single day is what I'm doing helping the people of this district. They are the ones that matter. I don't matter. They do.
One other thing on that, and I like to remind myself of it because people say, "Oh, that's going to be your place in the house or whatever." I like to remind people that I'm running to represent people in that seat. I won't own that seat. You won't own Congressional District 2 seat.
Yeah,
the mayor doesn't own the seat for the mayor. That's the people's seat.
It's the people's seat.
And they elect us to represent them there. So I think it really helps for people to understand that the person doesn't own it. The people do, and we put the person.
You're temporary.
Exactly. You're replaceable.
Yeah.
So, Dawn, do you have any last comments you want to make before we kind of segue to?
Yeah, I don't. And if you don't mind, I'll sign off because I'm I drove from Ontario already, so it's been a long day.
Little punch drunk.
All right.
And little eyes are like so my eyes are rolling up in the back of my head.
We'll post information about the Myrtle Creek event as well as contact information for you and any other information, like I said, that you want to send. We'll put in the description when we upload this video. So, thank you very much.
Thank you,
and appreciate you being willing to come here.
And everybody keep fighting the good fight
every day.
All right, take care.
Be well. Rest up.
Thanks. Bye.
So next is Bret. You've tell anybody whatever you want to say.
Again, thank you, SOPP, for putting this together tonight. And everything Dawn said, that. There's one thing I do want to add to all the things that she said. And I mentioned this is my third run in this district for the seat. I haven't seen a whole lot change here. People's need for health care is even greater now, I think. Maybe I'm just more aware of it, but I think it's greater now than ever. Housing, still, I don't see in the district really a whole lot of housing stuff happening. Education, still a great need there. And transportation is a huge thing for our rural districts. I know especially Coos and Curry counties, I'm more aware there of what's happened recently, that with the federal money being cut off, that routes have been pulled away. We don't have a route that takes people to Roseburg to go to the VA anymore. So where are we going to go with that? Transportation is really a need in our rural districts and our rural counties, because I know people that use it to ride to their doctor's appointments who now have to get somebody to split their car and drive them. So these are all still things that we need to look at. I'm still looking at them. I don't have solutions for all of it, but I'm more than willing to stick my head and make something happen anywhere that I can, bring people together to come up with solutions and ideas. I hear that the new New York mayor has put together childcare for everyone in New York City. It's like, that's something that we could do in rural communities that would let parents go to work.
Right. No, that's cool that you brought him up. I'm glad, because we do need to start talking about collectivism and socialism and stuff, and because a lot of people are really I think looking for that in our politics, and at least the policies that would lead to more access to more stuff, because we like transportation and childcare and food and everything, and better wages, so anyway, I forgot what else I was going to say, but the part about the repairing. I mean, that's the part that is scary, because like we talk about repairing the government, or whatever, but we need to like rebuild and not.
Renovate was the word I was looking for. My brain's tired too. I was
Well,
trying to
I
get
don't wanna,
renovate to come out. That's kind of
yeah,
what we need.
and I don't want to like police your like wordage either, because it's the way you describe it or whatever. But I mean, we need to really be. It's hard. I want to really kind of campaign, in a way that is more like trying out, like overhauling a lot of stuff, like even just the meetings, having a consensus meeting instead of, and focusing more on actual, dialogue that leads to more of a consensus rather than just like a majority rule. And like a lot of things that just seem like kind of outlandish ideas, we can try them out anyway. And there was another one that I thought of a minute ago, but I forgot what. But yeah, actually, well, running as an anarchist, even like, and educating people about what that even is, instead of just like trying to be an antagonist or whatever. Because a lot of people, assume that you mean like anarchism means like chaos or destruction or something.
Right.
So and actually just having a campaign that because that's what I was going to say earlier, was the public perception and public opinion is so just like useless, and you have to kind of like admit that like people are really misled, and it kind of almost imply, you don't want to say people are stupid, but it kind of is like
Let's use the proper word. It's ignorant, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not saying they're stupid. They're just uninformed, which
yeah.
technically is an ignorant person, and I'm okay with that.
And just used to having very poor options, and
Mhm.
result making really poor decisions, and that goes for like a lot of things. So, and the other thing, anyway, I could just go on. I like will
Hey,
rotate my.
hang on until let's let Brett get through his, whatever he wanted to say. So, for his
Well,
race. So,
we're kind of saying it, Betsy, but thanks for tossing the floor back to me. So really, I'm in this because I just feel like our rural districts, and let's call it what it is, HD House District 1 is about as rural as you can get, and they've divided all of the cities off of this district. So I have all of Curry County, which Brookings is our biggest city, but it doesn't do a whole lot statewide. Gold Beach is in Curry County is our county seat, and Port Orford is where I live, the smallest city in the county. And there are some other little towns that aren't even towns; they're unincorporated county areas that have a name. And then Southern Coos County, Coos Bay itself, and North Bend are not in District 1. So I have Bandon, and then heading across through Coquille that is still the county seat, but used to kind of like be a really hubbub place. And Myrtle Point, I have to make sure I don't confuse it with Myrtle Creek, Myrtle Point, and Bridge and Remote. Those towns get smaller and smaller as you come to the Douglas County line, and then you get over into Douglas County and come into 10 Mile and Winston and Green and those areas. All of those are really kind of rural, and I almost feel like the Western Douglas part of it is really the more urban feeling that I get when I come into the district. So I love them all equally. They all have really similar needs. And again, back to the healthcare and the education, and price of everything. I don't know what gas prices did this week in Douglas County. We're $4 a gallon for regular gas here again in Port Orford. We have one gas station, so there's no choice. So we're back at $4 a gallon. I'm just not seeing the prices change. And I don't know as a legislator that I can necessarily change prices. I know what things we could do is to help people with their health care, make that more affordable, make their medication more affordable. And I hear a lot of discussion about why are drug prices so high. And I don't want to say that I'm going to quote the orange person. I know why our drug prices are high, and I don't hear anybody really talk about it. We don't control or negotiate our prices with the medical system that we have in our country. Those are just left to kind of run here and there. Although some of them, the Biden administration put some legislation in there to get some of those prices changed. But that's one of the reasons why our medical care is really expensive. Expensive is we don't have any regulation on how much we pay as a collective into that system. Other countries have nationalized healthcare, so they control how much they pay for everything, and the people get that service. So their healthcare service in each of those nations takes care of making sure the price is affordable. That's something we really could work on nationally in the United States, but in Oregon, we can work on that as well. I think there are some issues we can do around our tax base and our taxing system to make it fairer, that Dawn was talking about, just the disparities, and there are just places where it's just seems so unfair that we could level it out. I know corporations all want to be able to do everything in the world without having to pay for anything, it seems like. But on that point, I also want to come back around to transportation. So there's a referendum currently that has been passed and approved by the Secretary of State that the Republican Party is trying to withdraw the transportation budget that was passed back in September. And go ahead, Max.
Oh no, I just think I saw a headline about that, and I just was saying, oh yeah.
So right now, the legislature, the Senate has put forward the Senate Bill 1599, which is the intent in that is to move the election to which we make the decision, that question on that referendum, from November to May, which I think is brilliant because we have low turnout in May, and that might help boost our turnout in May a little bit, but it also get us an answer to whether or not that referendum is actually going to take place. So I think we should answer the question sooner than later. So my state senator, David Brock Smith, I haven't heard from my state representative, Court Boice, as to his position. David Brock Smith is all up in arms about not wanting this to pass, that they want to have the election in November. I don't know why we should be waiting, because what the referendum did in its language is it freezes the budget for the transportation department. So right now they don't have any additional money available. We haven't had a freeze or a big snow or anything yet. So I don't know what's going to happen what's left of this winter when that happens and we don't have money to pay staff to go out and salt roads and run plows. Those types of things.
Yeah,
and especially here in Curry County, to put our highways back together when they slide off into the ocean.
Right.
Yeah, one of the things about the transportation bill, I've been looking at Virgil Osborne. I was listening to a podcast that he did 6 months ago with another, Republican state rep. For one, he doesn't want rural bus transportation. Okay, doesn't want rural bus transportation. So I'm assuming the rest of the guys, no, he was pretty clear on it. I saved the thing because I'm going to share some of the clips from it, because this transportation argument, this whole referendum, seems to me to be a ruse to that real agenda, which is to eliminate public transportation, with the same argument that we're coming for their cars, just like they think that, coming for their guns. So anyway, go ahead.
There's another thing in that, Betsy, that caught my eye, and I keep forgetting to go back and dig into it. But there was either some repair work done, some changes, or maybe a complete removal of the kicker off our tax system was written into that. So I think at least a change to how the kicker would work. And the Republicans love the kicker. I know a lot of people do. But I think that's something we could look at in our tax system that may not be all that much to our benefit. So that's one of the things they were trying to kill in it as well, not just the transportation system. There were a few things there. And I've had a couple of my own members here in Curry County write me and say, why are you so for this transportation bill? They're taxing people with electric cars. Electric cars make no impact on our roads. I'm like, last time I checked, they weigh a couple of tons each. Even the little ones are heavy. Those batteries are heavy. So the wear and tear isn't from chains on our tires and driving fast or turning corners really hard. It's the weight on the road over time. It's like washing your clothing over and over. After a while, it's like, oh, I'm threadbare. You have to maintain. The highways require maintenance. And we do have some new road projects going in. The other thing I know Republicans really hate in Oregon is the Portland Bridge. The I-5 bridge that they're working on, the plan and getting that going. So they really don't want that to go through. I don't know why, because we need to have commerce in our state to help keep our economy running. So I don't know what we would do if trucks couldn't drive, especially here in Curry County. We have one highway, 101. And then through most of it, House District 142 is the other highway, either, in and out from Winston to I-5 back over here to Bandon. Those are really our thoroughfares for transit and commerce. So we really got to look at that. And I personally love horses, but I don't want to ride one to work. And a horse and buggy is not my idea of a nice Sunday ride. So,
well, and if you live in Roseburg, you don't want to ride a bicycle after a certain age either. There's a lot of hills around here.
There's that part too, even if it's electric. So those are kind of the things that are really sticking for me that I want to work on. Transportation has kind of gotten moved to the top because it really does, for us in our rural districts, has an impact on our medical care. Because I have people that's how they get to their medical appointments. And our little transit bus here will actually pull off of the regular route a couple of blocks to pick people up at home. I found that just amazing that they would do it. And they will stop anywhere on the route to let people on and off. You can call ahead and ask them to make a stop to get on, as long as they don't have to get off the route. But for medical care, there are places where they will ahead of time plan for the bus just to like make a little turn off a couple of blocks and pick someone up and take them to their appointment. So as long as they're riding on the regular route.
Yeah, and I was just thinking earlier, we people asking the question like, why are prices so high or whatever? Why is everything so unaffordable? I keep thinking, well, why don't we ask like, how can we get like vouchers or something, and help people pay for stuff on a case by case and on like case by case need basis, people actually like just having a general, commonplace understanding of like how we can, accommodate for actual people instead of, just making everything so mandatory to follow whatever, book rule and stuff that's going on. So appreciate
the sentiment is great, but I'm going to say that giving income cash is really that's really the answer, because those vouchers create a bureaucracy that creates it, so more goes to the bureaucracy or a good amount and not to the people that it's intended to help. And so a universal income, but they've done that in smaller levels, right? In various, there's been, samples of what's happened around the country where they've tried that, which greatly improves the individual's lives or the family's lives, but also the economies where they live.
Right. There's a huge need for like people to buy all the food that's at the store, and there's just a lot of people are shoplifting instead, so I don't know. Just these commonplace kind of like 1 + 1 = 2, things that would happen if there was more people like involved in the government process and the budget meetings and all this stuff. I think, it just seems like you would get a lot more people's, because, I was reminded the other day, like, about how, I don't know, the inflation hasn't really been adjusted or whatever, and people's wages. I mean, it's just so ridiculous how long it's been since we've actually had like reasonable wages or something, that for families and stuff. Anyway,
well, that actually was happening during the Biden administration. That pay was, well, now it's hard for us to have really good statistics. Thank you, President Trump, but pay was rising faster than inflation was for a little bit of time there until Trump came into office. So that's all kind of changed again. But that doesn't apply to everybody. It applies to people who have jobs, not to people who don't. An ugly thing that I wanted to bring up, because you started to mention, Max, something about oil, and I mentioned the price of gasoline. And it's the ugly truth that I can't get anybody to really focus on. The cost of everything that we're seeing, that everything is more expensive, is all based on petroleum.
Right.
Getting goods to market, producing goods, generating electricity, all of those things all use petroleum. And the higher the price is for the petroleum, the higher that's an input for people that are using things like, I don't know, an electric generation plant that might be using natural gas as a petroleum product. So the price of petroleum affects everything across the board, and getting our goods to market typically require some kind of trucking or some kind of movement in that way with an engine in it. So there's an expense because of the petroleum and everything that we buy at the store. Farmers, for a while, I had a little farm and a ranch, and I knew that the feed that I was buying required my farmer, even to cut alfalfa, he was running a machine that had a gas engine in it or a diesel engine in it. So he was cutting the hay and then bundling the hay with another machine that has more gasoline in it. And then he has to get that hay to the feed store. And then I have to go pick up the hay at the feed store. Everybody's adding gasoline to the price of everything. So the higher the gasoline prices, the higher our prices are going to be. And I avoid the inflation thing because I don't think most people really understand that that's a year over year. It's a comparison tool over what the price was last year at this time, and not looking at last month I paid 65 cents for this can of cat food, and this month it's 75 cents, and next month it's going to be 85 cents. That's the stuff that I really see. The inflation rate at 3.5 or 3% or 2.5% doesn't make that much difference to me because it tells me that the prices have increased, which I can see, but how much is really something that's shocking to the mind. And I think that's what people are seeing.
Yeah.
That's what's shocking to them. So I spend a lot of time trying to explain to people what my position would be working in the House district. So our state House of Representatives is similar to, but different than Congress, our U.S. Congress. It's the same idea. We have a Senate and a House with representatives in both, but we don't set policy for the nation, for the federal government. We set policy within the state of Oregon. So we're affected by all of the stuff that comes downstream from the federal government. And when they withdraw, let's say, our transportation funding, which is our tax dollars that get sent into the U.S. Treasury, that, oh, now those aren't being sent back to us to apply to our roads and our streets in Oregon. There's got to be some way that, and I'm trying to work this out to figure out how we can maybe keep those dollars in Oregon instead of having them go to the Treasury. Is there some way that we could start like a little tax revolt?
Yeah.
Something that we could do in that way statewide for a lot of different things, not just transportation. It's like our tax dollars, federal tax dollars, every paycheck, we pay federal tax money. Where does that money go? It goes to the U.S. Treasury. Then we have to ask for, through legislation, which is what Dawn is looking to do, to get that money to come back to our states. We have to justify why we need that money to come back to us. And then once it comes to the state, we have to get our state legislatures to justify where and how to best use that money and where to put it to make those things happen, like healthcare. How do we spread that amongst the state when the federal government sends money to us for our healthcare system? So those are the things that I would be doing at the state level. It's similar to the U.S. Congress, but it's constricted to the state itself, and we have to work with what the federal government gives us and what our state tax money is as well. So those are just some things that I want to look at when I'm elected. I think it just seems like there are some simple things we can do just to make things run a little smoother and be easier for everybody.
Well, when Dawn, actually, I met her when she came to Roseburg to speak, locally, and raised a lot of issues regarding the housing situation. I'm, one of the primary political things I do is housing and homeless advocacy. Right. And I've had decades of experience in affordable housing and what get there. The reason we have such a housing crisis, and I'm talking about the low income, and because it's also related to homelessness, it is, I started Housing First Umpqua because the reality is that is what we believe is the solution to homelessness, right? That's what I personally believe is housing. It's not solving mental health crisis issues.
You mean the brick and mortar, the wooden frames, all that stuff?
Yes.
The real house?
Yeah, the real house, and not temporary shelter, but even though, Max and I have been working on something in the city regarding places for everybody to be, just because of the draconian sweeps. But one of the things, these things could be stopped by the state legislature. And one of the things that's happening, there's actually an initiative petition that they're trying to get on the ballot to repeal basically the provisions of what was House Bill 3551, which is time, place, manner for homeless people, right? The cities could not criminalize or penalize site people, under state law if they didn't have time, place, and manner that they had submitted to the state, a plan, basically how they were going to do that. And theoretically, they were also supposed to have shelter, which I don't know any cities accomplished that goal, right? So it's being enacted anyway. Well, now people on the right, because there's this myth that it's the time, place, and manner that makes them unable to manage homelessness. So really, this is the argument because it's so bizarre. I guess they listen to Trump so much, they just figure you can tell people anything and they're going to believe it these days. So on the housing, and the other side is, and this is not necessarily a question more than just input. The other side is we really need to look at making public the privatization of housing that happened since the Reagan administration at the low end of it. That, doing away with the public housing model, I'm sorry, that's the most accountable. And to my knowledge, we don't have the slum public housing that you see in movies in Oregon, right? Our public housing is well managed, clean, and so it's there's some things that can happen at the state legislature, and unfortunately it's money and relying upon what happens at the feds too. But I would really encourage the narrative that really the Democrats have even perpetuated is that the way to build these housing, but then you're stuck with communities like Douglas County, your county, that don't get the housing built at all. It just doesn't materialize. So
one of the difficult things, sorry to interrupt you on your thought there, Betsy.
No, I'm done. I'm done.
One of the things I've seen, especially in Curry County, there hasn't been any housing built. Apparently there's a project in Southern County down near Brookings. It's called Lone Ranch. And that property had been, if it was given to the city, our community college sits on a piece of that land as well. But there's a 1,000-unit housing project planned on this land, and it's supposed to be multi-use, meaning multi-units. So it's not just going to be single-family homes, but multi-unit dwellings as well. So an entire project. But that's been going on for years. One of the things I run into here is there aren't locations on which you could actually build a set of houses. What most of us see is a subdivision of just a nice little row of single family homes. There just aren't locations because we're either covered by trees or covered by mountains covered by trees that would require really expensive engineering to make that happen. And our local infrastructures here in Port Orford, our water system, our water and sanitation was built in the 60s, and it still runs like it was built in the 60s. It's just been slapdash trying to keep that together and keep it going. And it's been really, really difficult. So we can't really add housing without that infrastructure repair or renovation. So those are the things we've been running into. And there just is not money being put here because we don't have corporations coming here to set up shop because they don't have an infrastructure to tap into. It's that circular firing squad thing. So I'm not sure how to cure that, but an idea that I had a couple of years ago in my first campaign, so it's been 4 years ago, was for the state to subsidize a subdivision, put in the streets, put in the infrastructure, and let local builders build homes on those and get the state's money back when the homes actually sell. So have that pay back to the state. So the state would just be stepping forward and creating the space for local builders. It would create jobs for our local economy and let them do the building and make the sale of the property to somebody who wants that home, and that money can come back into the state coffers. I can't believe that I haven't heard of something like that happen in the past. And it's just every time I mention it, people are like, oh, that'd be a really great idea, but I don't ever hear it go anywhere.
Well, you might want to promote it now because there is also this crisis in that mid-range housing too, or what they call worker housing. Because, even when you when you do searches, right, about, where that data is, So I think that's a great idea for that. But even the infrastructure part is something that we are promoting regarding the permanent housing side of the solution, right? Because we advocate for the humane treatment of people who are living outside and until they're housed, but housing has to be the solution, because no matter what you do to them, the end has to be they have a place to live permanently. And so that
The other is kind of
affordability issue.
stopgap, right? The other is
Yes,
stopgap to keep people protected until we can get them into something
right.
permanent. But
Right. It
how
has to.
long does the stopgap have to go? There's
That's the problem. Think
right.
about how long we've had shelters. I mean, the real problem is
how long can you sleep in a high school gym?
right. Yeah, it's and then the problem with warming or cooling centers, we see that sometimes they don't have enough volunteers because the way it's based, right? It's not really an emergency response with a good structure support to it. So
And
the
here they put them in
solution,
places. They put them in places that are difficult to access too, because nobody wants it in their backyard. So then it's
yeah,
difficult
we
to
have
use.
that. Yeah, and there's some stuff in the state legislature that can happen, but I don't want to take up too much time delving in a topic I can talk for hours about. Anyway, so anything else you want to tell us, and how do people get involved with what your campaign?
So So briefly, I probably should introduce myself. I'm Bret Cecil. I live in Port Orford
Okay,
in Curry County.
I
I
said it was informal.
unfortunately, I assume that people know who I am anymore, and I need to not do that. You can find my campaign online at bretcecil.com. It's BRETCECIL.com. Any donations you can help me out with, there's a button there. I'm currently under construction, working on it as quickly as I can. So I appreciate any help. There's email contacts there too on the same page with the donation button. So if people want to get a hold of me, they can get a hold of me by email that way as well. So I think I kind of said my piece about what some of my policy concerns are. And I just look forward to getting out and campaigning. So I've been trying since the last time I ran 2 years ago. And here's where I get into my medical system, or our medical system, is I've been needing a hip replacement for about almost 8 years. And I finally couldn't do anymore after my last campaign season. So I spent the last 2 years trying to get in line. So in this past December, I finally had my hip replacement surgery, which has really knocked me out. I was hoping to start campaigning last fall. But here I am. I'm just getting back on my feet. So I might be moving a little slowly. Fortunately or unfortunately, I don't have a Democratic opponent in this district. So it'll give me a chance to get on my feet in time to run in the general election in November. So any help that anybody can reach out for, I'll have a volunteer form set up on my webpage so if people can help volunteer. I don't know, knock doors or make phone calls, just tell people what's going on, or help me do some meet and greets. I think would be a really great thing to start with right now. It's kind of simple and gentle. You can do small groups and get to know some people, especially Douglas County. I've kind of had a difficult time doing outreach there and meeting folks. That's where I did my door knocking last year, the majority of it. And I met a lot of really fantastic people. Unfortunately, there just wasn't a lot of time before the election to get out and see everybody. So I'd really like to make another swing back through Greene and Winston and all those areas. So really, really fantastic people with great ideas and great concerns. Back to you, Betsy.
What are the
Yeah.
biggest population centers? Is it in Douglas County that you're in? Is that Greene and Winston?
Greene and Winston, essentially. Yeah. What, Greene's a district, do they call it? I think Winston is a
Yeah,
city, correct?
right. Yes, yeah. It's one of the
So
12
those are like the
incorporated
largest
cities in the
population
county.
centers. In Coos County, Bandon and Coquille are kind of similarly sized. Bandon's easier access for me, but Coquille that's a fantastic place ag wise. It just seems kind of asleep. And then the little town of Powers is just right outside of there too, which was a timber town.
Mhm.
And then Curry County, Brookings is the largest town, which is down by the California border. So the
All right.
population centers are all over the place,
Yeah.
which is what makes it really difficult to campaign in those areas. And so a lot of what I do with contributions that people make to me is mostly for my travel, paying for fuel, and on the rare occasion that I need to stay over. When I go to Douglas County, I very often will like stay over a Friday night and campaign on Friday and stay Friday night and do Saturday and maybe even Sunday if I've got the energy to do it. So those are really where my main expenditures come in, is just travel and lodging while I'm campaigning.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
Any questions? Or, I mean, we had such a robust discussion about all of the things already. We've kind of bookended the conversation with the two candidates.
Yeah, and to get out of here and it's shy of 2 hours. John is still waiting to talk about all the good stuff community
Right.
rights is doing. So,
Yeah.
and
I'd
you're
like to hear
welcome to
that.
come on and drop in anytime too. And a lot of times, we're actually going to shift the format. We're going to not have the Sunday show have candidates, or we're going to do one more that's the four people running. The more progressive to throne the Douglas County Commissioners. We're going to have them on at one show to talk about them and their strategy. And then we're going to kind of do another one that Kevin and I will just probably run to do interviews for folks who are running. We'll reach out to different candidates. This is a nonpartisan program, and some of the people in here, in the room are not registered Democrats. Kevin Bell and I happen to be. And I certainly am a Democrat because of Bernie Sanders, but the practicality is the two-party system. If you want to do electoral politics, if you want candidates, it's you really need to align with one or the others, and certainly we're not going to align with the Republicans very well. Although years ago,
there's the rub I run into. I agree with you. That's where I am. People are like, you should be an independent and run. It's like it's really tough to make it happen when you're working outside the system that's set up. So you kind of got to pick a party, and I won't do Republican. I grew up that way. I was raised Republican, and I gave it up along with the Mormon Church when I turned 23.
Yeah. It's the practical matter is that there are even the voter databases with the two parties is something that you really can't buy if you're an independent candidate in a small area like this, right? And I know Bernie went outside of that system, but he had the money and it was a national campaign to be able to, use that kind of stuff.
Too.
Right. Right. And that's one tool. I mean, the reality is the parties have built this mass election, candidate-oriented tool that is very helpful to folks. The Douglas County Democrats can endorse non-Democrats in nonpartisan races. It's part of our bylaws, and so that is helpful, right? And that's certainly we want to focus because you also probably run into this, but we are outnumbered by Republicans more than 2-1. Democrats are. So if we don't have more than 2-1, and if we don't have non-affiliated voters, if we don't focus on them, and I know that some people say, well, we want the more moderate Republicans. Right now, that may be an opportunity, but it really hasn't proven to be a winning strategy. And so we really have to look at the hardest to organize around, which is the disenfranchised, the people who aren't voting. We have to convince people there's a reason to vote. And even if they don't vote in the upcoming primary and don't want to be a Democrat, at least get them to understand the importance of voting if you really want that change. Because everything you hear people bitch about, you and I know, people in this room know, is about public policy made by these people that, I say people vote whether they cast a ballot or not. So if you stay home, you're not voting. You're voting.
Right.
You say you're not voting, but you are. You voted for the status quo and to let somebody else choose, that.
Well,
Just by you're not casting a ballot, right?
Yeah, totally.
But you voted.
Good way to say it. That's a good way to put it because I was thinking of it the other way, which might have some merit, but like I think we need to take it more seriously. That when people don't, we should take it more literally as a vote somehow. As the fact that I don't know, it just kind of like it's just de facto you just blame the people that didn't vote or something. I don't know. It's annoying that because that's kind of one of the things that points out that just there's not a lot of like
But
intellectual.
aren't they to blame? But aren't they to blame? Wait a second, Max. Aren't they to blame?
No, the people that are voting are. That's
No, the people who didn't vote, didn't cast a ballot. They did vote, right?
huh?
They did vote.
It's a non-vote that is actually a vote.
Right. They just didn't cast a ballot to say I don't want either one, right? And to say that, oh, they're not to blame. Hell yeah, they are. I disagree. They're part of the problem. I won't put the whole guilt trip on non-voters,
The problem though is that
non-ballot casters.
speaking up with their voice though. I mean, the vote is only like your choices that they give you. They give you options. We need to be providing better options for ourselves by speaking up and having like more actual, civic engagement opportunities. And that's where I'm seeing, it's just a shot and it's like shooting fish in a barrel because, they have the major employers around here and they basically tell people how to vote. And so, aren't the people, and I'm not trying to say who's to blame or whatever either, but like that's that George Carlin thing, which is like really the people who are voting are really the ones to blame. But really, it's
Right.
not about
Yeah,
that. Like the people in power kind of easily and very efficiently sabotaging any public dialogue that gets anywhere near effective. And that's what I'm seeing. That's what I kind of am from that kind of persuasion of just thinking the vote doesn't really matter. It's really the dollar and the voice. And so when we're silenced and broke, there's not a lot of hope in this whole. It's really the morale is very low, and so it's like, dang. And that's why I want to start a magazine and the People's Homeless Commission and just talk to people more and get a better venues and infrastructure for this stuff and really take it seriously that people aren't voting because it's getting really bad around here and they're talking about taking away vote by mail and it's like this is
all right, let me put the brakes on that. I'm putting the brakes on that. That's a Republican. David Brock Smith, our state senator, because you live in Douglas County, correct?
Yeah.
Has quoted to me that is clickbait for his party. They have no intention of repealing vote by mail. It keeps their base riled up and it keeps them in donations because all those little people think that it's something that's going to make it. It's not going to happen.
They get a lot of money though. That's the thing. It's like they've got
right.
I mean, how is there any kind of? Sorry, I'm getting really cynical here.
Well, the vote by mail, I believe it passed like 68% in Douglas County, in our county. It's like most people, Republican or Democrat, understand the convenience of voting and is going, they're not aware that people don't really want us to vote, right? We're all under the delusion that, that we should vote, right? So that's the best way to get people to vote. So it would be interesting if the initiative gets, is on the ballot, if it's going to, if people are going to vote for it here. Because that and campaign finance reform passed by a huge margin in Douglas County as well. And so I think that there are commonalities, and this is kind of why the progressive podcast is, not really doesn't want to be too partisan. And for one, we are probably the reformists, Kevin and I, in the Democratic Party. We want to see that change and be much more progressive. But the reality is that we have to look at the commonalities between the people that are Democrats, non-Democrats like Max, and other people in the community that are not even engaged. What are we going to do to help people realize they do have a place at the table? They just need to sit down. Right?
So can I touch on some of the points that Max made before? I know a lot of people I talk to feel like when they vote, they're left making the choice of the lesser of two evils. And my response to that always is, so make yourself the other choice. Part of the reason we only end up with those two is that is part of the system, is to narrow it down to two people. It's a two-party system, a representative, a nominee from each party to vote for. But in the primary, like right now, I was really pleased to hear that CD2's got so many people running and Democrats running, not just one sitting there. So it's really important that we have people turn out. And the thing that I find, especially in my county, which I call us a retirement village here, and I don't mean that in any derogatory way. Port Orford, I think our median age is 62. I think it's 58 in Curry County. So that we're kind of an older population here is where we are with that. So
Yeah.
my point I'm trying to make is that we need people to get out and vote. We need people to get involved. It's difficult for young folks who might have mom and dad both have two jobs and they're trying to get kids to school and to daycare and trying to do all the other things they do to earn a living to keep their household running. And we see folks like Dawn getting home. She's tired, wants to rest. I mean, I can't imagine being on that treadmill. I've been on that treadmill before, but at this age, being on that treadmill. So it always ends up being left to some of the more seasoned folks to step in these positions and run for office. And I hear that complained a lot. We need more young people. Yes, we do. But especially our state legislative system isn't set up that you can earn a living wage. Because trust me, I'm not going to be making any money when I'm elected to the seat. It's less than $40,000 a year. So it's not something that a young person that has kids or a single mom could take that on as a full-time job and get a part-time pay. So again, we're back on that circular firing squad, finding people that can get involved and do things. A lot of times it happens on the local level of school boards, library boards, but those are all volunteer. Even our city council folks, at least in Curry County, all of our city councils are volunteer. They're not paid. So, we're dependent on people to volunteer their time on top of the lives they live. And if one little thing gets off track, now all of a sudden they can't do the job. They end up resigning and we're back on that whole hamster wheel again. So it would be really, really good if we could get people involved and run for office. Like I was encouraging you, Max, to run for mayor, even if you do it without, this thing, I have to win. If I don't win, what's it all for? Getting the message out and being able to reach out to people and speak to them is really, really important. And people love to be able to talk to you, especially when they know that you're listening to what they're saying.
Well, and I think a perfect example of that going on is, you don't have to be the winner to push the needle in the right direction. And who was it who showed us that, who ran, brain fart, it's not my day right now. I just woke up from a nap a couple hours ago. He ran for Oregon governor. Who was that, Betsy? And he was able to push campaign rights on the ballot. Patrick Starnes, yes.
Starnes.
Oh, yeah.
And, he dropped out, but he was able to push the needle in his direction.
Yeah.
Oh,
he
yeah.
brought me some
campaign,
ideas.
yeah, and campaign finance. He was raised here in Douglas County. Patrick was, and so I knew him, from Uncle Watersheds when he did that.
Woodworker, cabinet maker.
Yes, absolutely.
Victorian
And
home
a
renovator.
wonderful example of someone who's willing to do what you need to do to move that needle forward. And like you said, Kevin, very good point. The ability to make significant change. We would have not had that on the ballot if he had not run and pushed the then governor Brown into that. And yeah, kudos. I mean, I don't like to hero worship, but Patrick is, a hero when it comes to, doing stuff and the lobbyist stuff. So if you ever want information, maybe we should actually have, Patrick on this show, to tell us all the strategies, because I've learned a lot of stuff from Patrick myself. So anyway, I segue. So thank you, Bret, for being here. And I want to give John the opportunity to say something. And so you're welcome to stay.
Thank you.
And then, so John,
Yes.
Want to tell us about community rights?
Well,
and what you're doing, what happened yesterday?
Well, yeah, I don't know how much time we have, but as I said, my little presentation yesterday that we believe that the community as a whole has rights. So this is the right to prevent corporate damage to the community and the environment, as well as the right to organize against such harm. And we hope to accomplish this by education and collaboration with the people of Douglas County. And I think yesterday was, I think it was a good start. Last year we had some presentations at different subjects. We had about the Crater Lake Wilderness proposal and about the watershed initiative that they're doing in Lane County, and then we had a couple presentation about Palestine and a benefit, and then we had Chris Hall from the Water League doing his presentation, and some of his facts I was discussing with Dawn. So this year we're trying to do that more. And then yesterday we had that workshop. It was actually titled a workshop. It was sort of, I think, the beginning of a workshop, because Stephanie from rural Oregon, a project was there, and we tried to invite as many groups as possible. And we had, I think, about 30 people, roughly from about 15 different groups. In fact, there was groups there that I did not know about in Douglas County, which is kind of exciting, really. That's what we wanted. And I think she really just introduced a lot of the ideas about community organizing, and we got a lot of discussion going. And the feedback I got from most people was that they want to do it again. And I don't think it's a matter of if. I think it's essential that we keep doing something like this, because it was really kind of good to see these people from the different groups around Douglas County just all getting to know each other and realizing that we are not alone here. So working out, we got some work ahead of us to figure out how we're, what we're going to do next. And I kind of committed myself about and Aaron from the Rainbow Kitchen there, I try to do something about land use planning and how it affects the farms around here, which is an important thing too. Bret, I think you understand that on the state level, that our land use laws that affect, that are supposed to protect our farmlanders under constant pressure from the Republicans and from the corporations. So, and Aaron, seen since she's with the farm to school and deals with a lot of the farmers, she was really interested in pursuing some of that more. So anyway, after it was done yesterday, you kind of get home and you try to decompress, and then I woke up this morning and it's like, my God, we got an awful lot of work ahead of us. So it was like, but people were there and they want to do it, so we can't just let it. Oh, okay, that was good. Well, see you down the road. We got, I got to keep on doing. M.A. Hansen had a comment today on Facebook like, well, we had to do it every month. Well, I wish you'd volunteer too, because it's not,
there you go.
it isn't that easy to get people, that want to come and speak and to get that many people to show up. But I felt it was a pretty good start yesterday, and in some ways it was more successful than I thought. And didn't really take notes like I should have yesterday. Stephanie's supposed to get it back to me, but one of the things Stephanie said was talking about getting people interested, and I kind of neglected this. She said, if you get people like sign up on your email list or your contact list at one of these presentations, you need to get back to them within 24 hours. And anything after 24 hours, they lose more and more interest. And I thought that was a very great point. And, you kind of have a tendency to, oh, well, we have a meeting in a couple weeks. I'll send a notice in. And so I that was one of the main points for me. But anyway, we would like to. We had a guy there yesterday. I don't know, the guy that was there with a dog on his back. His name was Bret, and I talked to him afterwards, and he seemed to enjoy the whole thing, and he says, "Well, I'm not representing an organization. I'm representing my wife and my mother-in-law. They're two pissed off women." So I thought anyway, he gave me his email address, and doing what Stephanie said, I emailed him today, and so maybe it's going to work. We'll see. But anyway, it was a good day, but there's a lot of work, and I'm hoping people didn't come away from that yesterday thinking, well, we're going to learn a lot. I think we learned that we have an awful lot to learn and to do. So I don't know. What do you think, Max? You were there.
I think it was great, and it does seem like a thing that needs to happen more often, and we can get to know each other and kind of have our own little meetings, and like a community, like a real community, kind of what feels like, people that can work together and kind of span the whole, landscape and the, different demographics and stuff, where we actually have kind of a political voice together that isn't, just this kind of fragmented, ununified kind of a, whatever. And so, yeah, I mean, that's exciting to me. That seems like the kind of people's coalition that I was, kind of trying to, think about starting, like our own little council meetings, our own, and, kind of run the community aside from whatever the hell they're doing, because we know what we want. And yeah, so actually every week would be cool, but it just depends on kind of what we're mobilizing about. And, if we could actually, I mean, that's exciting. That's kind of like the kind of stuff I want to do with my little studio, is just kind of build like a group of these different groups and kind of just thread it all together as much as possible, and work together and actually get them all represented in this newsletter thing I'm trying to do, and get everybody, I don't know, just really connected and thinking about it, as a whole, like as a big picture thing. And that was a huge step, I think, just having that meeting. And the ROP people, there are, it's not like, because nobody wants to reinvent the wheel. And so, yeah, Rainbow Kitchen was a great venue. I think we could live too, maybe, or like even set it up. I don't know, look at different ways to set it up. But yeah, I don't know, just doing it is cool. And I think we could do it in different places. And also, I mean, another thing I think that I've been thinking about that's kind of like that is like a community needs meeting or whatever. I don't know if I saw like a TED Talk about it. Somebody just randomly did like you set up a meeting just with the only intention of just sharing. Just you bring one thing you have that you could share, and one thing that you could use that you don't have that would really help. And everybody has, at least two of those two things that they could bring as just even concepts, not even like, restricted to any like physical needs or whatever. And like the amount of actual mutual aid that comes out of that can be pretty, surprising, actually, just an open-ended thing like that, I guess.
Yeah, we've been talking about, with Zach about trying to push, establish citizens' assemblies, and and that's what you're talking about too. And I think the frustration we feel is, especially with our county government, we don't even have a chance to say anything. So if we can give people a chance where they can really, say a voice, and we can build on that, then maybe we're going to eventually get to the point where we can actually, have a say in what happens. But right now,
I'd like to help you work on that. So
okay.
I've been goading Senator Smith and our Representative Court Boice, so Virgil can get in on this too, and so can Alex Scarlatos. Time for town halls. Douglas County has 3 overlapping House districts. You guys should be demanding that those boneheads show up and hold town halls with you guys and let you know what's going on. I managed to get them to do one in Roseburg last year, and the only reason that happened was because I threatened to hold my own town halls if they weren't going to show up. And they're like, oh, they got right on it and did it. But I talked to David Brock Smith about this last month. In fact, I ran a piece in the paper here in Port Orford, letting them know they need to do it. They both pledged to do that because I pledged to hold town hall meetings in all 3 counties in my district at least once a year if I were to be elected. Oh, David's like, I'll do the same thing. And Court was, oh, yeah, that's a really great idea. They don't do it.
Right.
So I goaded them into doing it last year, and I've started now. David threw a fit. He said, well, that turned into a giant shit show last time. And I know this is being recorded. I'm quoting him. You saw how that happened, and we're coming into short session. I'm like, I'm just letting you guys know this would be a good time to start planning so you don't have the same shit show. Because they showed up with a roll of tickets to give people for asking questions and each of their briefcases, and Court brought his mother. So that's how they came to meet with their constituents in the town hall meeting here in Curry County, and they got their asses handed to them on a platter, and it wasn't silver. So we need to start working on making them show up and speak to us. Newsletters and Facebook posts are not a way to communicate with your constituents, and we need to hold them to that.
Yeah.
The one here, I think they were a little shocked that they didn't have their regular fan club there, because we showed up and we were probably a little bit more than half of the audience,
Yep.
So if you arrange that, kudos to you, Brad, for the threat. And they couldn't, and you're right, they couldn't, kind of give that one-sided spiel, right? Because of the people. We had a whole list of what we were going to bring up, right? And people shared that stuff and were really prepared, because that's what you really want to do if you want to kind of put them on the spot the way that they need to be put on the spot. And we just haven't done enough of that. So it worked out well that people wanted to show up.
They have staff that can put all that stuff together for them. They don't have to do that on their own.
Yeah,
they have contacts
very good point.
In all of their districts that can do that stuff. They just don't want to, because they don't want a shit show on their hands, which is what they get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The county committee, actually, the tactic of your own town hall is a great idea, because that's really what I suggest people do who run for office. And the 4 that have kind of made a kind of a group effort, kind of similar to what Dawn was talking about, the Democrats. We have 3 Democrats and a Libertarian, the Douglas County Democrats, who are running for county commissioner, and they've been going to they're doing town halls throughout the county. Right, they've been to Reedsport, they've been to Drain, they're going to Glendale, I think, next week, and then they'll be in Roseburg, I think, the week after. And so they want to hit all the areas, and they're also going to start doing some group online kind of forums, right, to do that. Because I think the reality is you have to be online and stuff like even this that you can use and push out to people because it's always there. It's always a way to look at it. There's no other venue, there's no other place that does that for a candidate now. It's the one benefit of the internet, seriously, that you can do whatever you want. And even, I encourage people to do weekly town halls of what's going on, right, in whatever scope that they're doing. And with Kat Stone, we did that at the end of her campaign, like right before, when she ran for state senate, and just say, okay, pick the issues you've heard people want to hear, and then start planning around getting that stuff done. And the sooner you do it, the better. So, because they get to know you, because you're right, that name recognition,
Here's
all
my
that
threat
stuff.
to them. I'm going to hold town hall meetings and you're going to be invited. If you don't show up, it's going to be a big giant chair with a big rubber chicken sitting in it with your name on it.
Yes, I
Don't
think
like
that's a great tactic too.
If you want to do
Well,
that,
they
yeah,
were
great. No, we
yeah,
can,
well,
yeah,
go ahead, John.
yeah, we could do it here. You could maybe get the library in Winston or something too. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, for the county commission candidates, the other side wasn't invited, so they sent Virgil Osborne to the first one and Myrtle Craig.
And your League of
Anyway,
Women Voters isn't very active in Douglas County, are they?
well, they are, and they're kind of interesting. Whether the problem is that the Republicans have been usually unwilling to participate in anything the league does in regard to candidate forums. That has been kind of the more recent history, and therefore they won't usually have one or hadn't had one because they wanted to be objective. I had a discussion with a prior person in the league. Well, the problem is you let them then decide, right? You actually gave them a voice that they shouldn't be able to nix that. You give them the opportunity, they don't show, then they don't show, right?
I've gotten them to change that in Curry County, and I believe Coos has too. The empty chair thing gone. They're putting out the invitation for the forum, and if they can't show up, the other candidate gets to speak.
Yeah. Well, I hopefully that can happen here. I don't know. It hasn't been broached yet here.
Yeah. And
So
from my understanding, it's up to each local chapter to make that rule decision for their chapter. It's not up to the National League of Women
yeah,
Voters.
I would think so. John, do you want to add anything more about community rights?
No, not right. Well, no, it's just we're trying to really just keep the conversation going, and we want to get any ideas anybody has. I was going to try to bring that up yesterday. Kind of got busy. Any ideas? Any presentations? People have an idea for let me know. I was going to say one thing, and again, at the end yesterday, I was going to say that even if 3 years from now the elections is we even have an election and it goes better than what the last one went, and we're feeling maybe a little bit more hopeful that our job isn't over yet. We still we still have a lot more work ahead of us.
Yes, we do.
So that's
job security. It's job security. We're set for life.
Yeah. So that's yeah. I don't know, what did you have in what did you think about it yesterday, Betsy?
Well, I was pleased with the turnout. I think that was great, and the representatives. And I, got connected with some folks, which I usually look at these kind of things as a networking opportunity, whether it goes beyond that event or not. And that happened, right? And I was really kind of most excited that the age range was, young enough to be my grandchild to, my older sister.
Right.
So, that is what thrills me is that I and younger people and even someone interested in running for office. And so I find that no matter what happens, if nothing goes forward specifically for that group of people, other people I'm sure have that same experience, and that's a great opportunity. I would suggest that you keep it simple, stupid, right? That apply. And I think that the network that the group that I described that I was involved in Long Beach, California, that was really became very powerful. I even forgot that we actually got a U.S. Congressperson elected too. So, but that took years to get to that place, right? It
Yeah.
was not the first thing they were able to do. We were instrumental in electing the first Latina to the school board, the first Black person to the school board, and that was because of those district elections that I talked about, that we were able to get that split up. But this was after years of working together and
Yeah.
building that. But the first thing is just creating that meeting day and time, right? So all you have to do is say, we're going to have this once a month. And I think that's good. And people show up and they just talk about what they're politically involved in or they're community wise involved in and bring issues to the table. It doesn't have to have anything more formal than that originally. And I think that's just the easiest way to do it. And as people say, oh, it's really going on, and okay, that then turns to, okay, we want you to show up at the League of Women Voters because they're going to have two people who hate homeless talking about homelessness in Douglas County in Roseburg, right? So, so show up. I mean, that kind of stuff should, although that opportunity wasn't used yesterday, but that kind of thing can happen. And then people show up, right? And can support
Right.
each other and things going on. So that's really, at this point, my take. And I think that making connections and knowing who does what and what expertise they have is also very valuable, right? Because I learned about some things I knew about, like RISE, but with that RISE person being there, I learned a lot more about what RISE is about and the kind
Yeah.
of resource they could be in the community, for example. So,
Yeah. And Aaron, who hosted, she was responsible, I think, for bringing a lot of those people in. She works with that other, she works a lot with that younger crowd. So that was really good what she did.
yeah.
She brought in people. So anyway,
Oh,
that's
good.
kind of, I mean, we go on, but that's kind of what I got to say. I think it's a start, and I'll think about it more, and I'll talk to all of you about it too. But it's not a matter. Should we do it again? Again, we have no choice. We have to do it again, and we had to keep doing it. So, and it's good that I think people realize, like, yeah, we're outnumbered here in Douglas County, but we still got people that think like us. So, yeah, I think,
Yeah, that's a real good point. I think that's a really, really good point because I even had people when I first moved here 35 years ago that I knew said, why in the hell did you move there? Do you know what they're racist? They had the Klan there.
yeah,
And and so and for a while I was thinking, hey, is that true? Is that true? Everybody here, and I have found that it's quite interesting that people can be born and raised here and be pretty damn progressive.
yeah,
In spite of the environment. So if anybody want to say anything before we sign off?
Might be a little late for me to talk about the farm stand bill. That was House Bill 4153, and I heard John talking about the farm to school issue.
no, I go ahead.
Um,
I go ahead because that's
are you
what Aaron.
familiar with? Were you familiar with that bill?
A little bit, but that's what Aaron was talking to me about yesterday. So.
All right. Yeah, so they've had their committee hearing on it. I need to look and see where all that's going to go, but I figured out why here in Curry County. I know David Brock Smith was one of the sponsors on it. But we have some farm stores here, and I don't think they like the farm stands encroaching on their business, is really what it is. They're just trying to tighten some of the controls on how big your building can be and what you can sell on what day, and what you can sell depending on how big your piece of property is and all that kind of stuff. It's getting in all that restrictive thing. And we've got like 5 stands just between my house and Bandon, which is all of 25 miles. There are 5 little stands there. People sell blackberries, or one of them has pies or something. And they're trying to shut those down because they want to try and regulate it and get everybody on the same page on the farm store instead of the farm stand idea. But the stands are they're like Lucy and her little psychology stand. It's just got a little tin roof on it. There's no windows or doors, but the stores are like a store. And so they're trying to make those farm stands compete with the stores. And I just think it's so cost prohibitive to the little guy.
Right.
I testified against it, just opposed it as it stands. So that was me.
No, that's good.
After yesterday, I actually looked at the farm bill, that farm stand bill. I actually read it. The real problem with it that I see is they want to totally replace the farm stands, which is a little mom and pop operation, which we see all over. That you're right, they might just be selling, flowers and fruit trees, fruit,
they got extra apples this season.
right. And so it's the total replacement. That's what I found extremely offensive. If they want to add stores, fine, and they want to have that category and that upper end stuff, that's a discussion. But I think the fact that they want to now say it's basically to eliminate the farm stand provision and insert it with the farm store provision. And so we'll put a thing in the blurb here about, about the caution of that, because I think that's a good thing to point out, because that's ridiculous to me. Why?
The other thing I testified on was Senate Bill 1599, that the governor is putting that forward to move the transportation bill referendum. Did I mention this already? Moving that to the May ballot instead of November. I did mention it already. Sorry.
Yeah,
I'm on repeat on that stuff.
Yeah, you're fair enough for campaigning, isn't that? You lose track of what you say. You say everything at the same time to everyone.
Right, I gotta say it
all right. Kevin, Max, are you still there? Anybody want to say anything before we say goodbye?
Yeah. I'm just working on my schedule for Frog Leg Studio for the next month or two, and I'm gonna wrap up the newsletter still. So look out for that, I guess. And if you have anything, I don't know, that you want, I hesitate to schedule things because I'm always like, find out there's something else that I need to be at, but it's not even that bad. I'm just trying to. Anyway, that's just my world right now.
Piece of advice on that: there will always be something else. Schedule it.
Yeah, just
do it.
Good point. Kevin, got any parting words?
Nothing intelligent, so I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you. So
I'll just say that Max told me yesterday that he tried to invite the News Review to send a reporter to